Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session of Vaahini Connect. My name is Dhanya Rajeswaran, and I'm the Director, Talent Strategy and Human Capital and Diversity for Accenture in India. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to have each one of you today to be in this conversation with a very, very special guest. Today, in conversation with us is Bhavana Rao, Managing Director, Intelligent Operations. And she's actually been a role model for many, many of our women at Accenture. And I've personally known her for the last 13 years, and it's just been amazing to just watch how you have grown through these years. So Bhavana, delighted that you could be part of this conversation here today. So before we get into the topic, which is really about what does it take for women to navigate themselves into the new, right? We speak about a world where digital is resetting everything, and the opportunities are abound for everybody, but yet there are lingering questions about what does it really take for us as women as we fight the barriers that we face in our constant day-to-day lives, both professionally and personally, and still be able to, put ourselves in a position where we are ready to take on challenging roles and do newer and innovative things. And to me, Bhavana, you embody that journey. So that's really what we want to talk about today. But before that, in your words, who are you?
Great. Thanks, Dhanya. And it's an absolute pleasure and privilege to be here and spend a little time talking about my experiences. So a little bit about me in my official capacity. I'm MD Applied Intelligence, and what that really means is in my job, I bring together the best of AI, analytics, data, platforms, and really try and make a difference to the work we do for our clients, right? Really, I want to talk about is how do you choose your roles when you're faced with a situation where you have to make a choice, right? So in a perfect world, and there's no such thing, where you can work 18 hours if you want to, there's no household responsibilities. I don't think, by the way, the situation exists anymore for men, women, for anyone. In a perfect world, you don't have to choose, right? But the reality is something will happen in your life which will make you choose. So how do you make that choice to stay relevant? The one thing I want to, direct thing I want to just tell people is always choose the role that's at the highest end of the innovation spectrum, right? Even if you have to compromise on span, on the title, on how many people are reporting into you, on who does it report to, let go of all that. Always look out and take the most innovative role that you can. So I had to step out 3 times, right? Twice for maternity leave, and once because my daughter needed a surgery. There's always the guilt that, oh, did my daughter have surgery because which is, totally unscientific, but you go through that, right? I had mentors who pushed me and said, take that, do it, do this new thing. And, some of the things they told me, and these are all male mentors, by the way, right? What's the worst that can happen? After 2 months, you'll turn around and say, you know what, I can't do this. That's fine, right? So I think sometimes selecting out is, as you said, conditioning. It's also the belief that I should not fail, I should not get it wrong. But actually in the span of a long career, for people who know you and work with you, it's better to attempt it and say, you know what, it didn't work for these reasons. Can we either correct it or or okay, then truly this is not meant for me. It's better to try and possibly fail than not try at all. And frankly, once you're in it, you realize that possibly fail is actually a very, very low probability.
Staying very intentional about your career matters, right? So that you take a longer term view of where you really want to get to and think about how you will get there, because not everybody gets lucky finding mentors. Because you have to be intentional about finding mentors. Mentors don't manifest around you suddenly and too late in life. So I think that's brilliant. I'm very curious about some of the things that you've actually said on this, right? So you've said if it works, it works more than
it works if it works more than half the time.
That was a tongue twister. Okay.
Yeah. So say it 5 times really fast, right? No, so what I mean by that is, if you set up certain things, like this is the way I want my life to operate, right? My kids are I want this to be their diet, and I want them to watch these many hours of TV. This is when I will, get bulk of my work done. This is when the nanny and the domestic help will come in and do this. It's a complicated system with several points of failure, right? if it works 60% of the time, that is success, right? And so maybe I'm saying something that's not right, but I'm saying set a realistic, slightly lower bar, right? And that brings me to one more point. I think again, maybe women struggle a little more with. See, you know, to do new work, you need resilience for pain and chaos, right? Emotional pain and chaos, because in the new, failure rates are higher, right? They are higher. You get a lot more very direct feedback saying, I didn't think this is AI, this is just something you have done, right? You set up something with a great amount of, you know, good intent, and then, you know, you get it right to the door, but, you know, the client doesn't take it forward for some reason. It happens, right? So in the new, there's a much bigger, you know, failure ratio. People have, you know, in building new things, you find a lot of very, very passionate people who are there to do their thing. And it's not like you're all going to agree and they're just going to listen to you, right, all the time. New talent comes in. So you living with that pain is a way of life, right? So you obviously need ways to shrug it off, right? I use my sense of humor, and, you know, that works for me. But people need a way to, you know, kind of just shrug it off, because
Create that armor for yourself.
Yeah. Create an armor, shrug it off. The person you had the biggest fight with, go and have a drink with them, right? So you just need to be either more thick-skinned or more, listen, don't take it so seriously, right? We're all in this together, trying to build the new. And the same goes for tolerance for chaos, which is what I also mean by, if it works more than half the time, it's this thing. And so if you're a bit of a perfectionist and you don't like any sort of emotional conflict, then, you know, if you want to do new stuff, you know, you've got to let go of some of that.
One thing that my mentor once told me is, Danya, what do you want to be known for, right? And that stuck with me. And when I look at your slide, you have this thing about self-identity.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this is where the science fiction part is going to come in, right? So who do you really see yourself as, right? And, you know, depending on your childhood conditioning, maybe you see yourself as Arjuna the archer. I'm pretty sure my son right now thinks, you know, he is one of the Pandavas, right? I see myself as the astronaut who is sent to a planet first, right? So I'm the captain of the ship that is going into, not to a known planet with, you know, well-established colonies. No, not that. The new planet, right? Where nobody knows anything about it, right? And nobody knows whether analytics will work, whether AI will work, what do they need? Do they need automation? So I'm, you know, captain of the Enterprise, and I'm, you know, sent on a mission, which is go figure out that planet, right? And that's what I do, right? So, you know, so that's, of course, you know, a corny or whatever, the fun way that I think about it. But really, self-identity is extremely important, right? Do you see yourself and truly believe that you're a leader, right? Do you see yourself as an explorer? Do you see yourself as somebody new?
So for all of you who are watching us on Facebook Live, please ping in your questions, and I'm sure we'll start taking them in a moment. There is a first question up. Okay. How does a non-technical person get into AI?
Right. Okay. So whenever we do something new, analytics, AI, data, there are, to get it right, or whatever we're building, there are 2-3 components to it. There's the technical component of coding it out, right? But there's the domain part of it, right? So which is, we are trying to build something that reconciles, or something that analyzes sentiment, or analyzes HR, you know, survey sentiment. So there is the domain aspect of it. So if you're a non-technical person, the entry into it could be to know the best about your particular domain, whichever one that may be, your industry, utilities, oil and gas, whatever that may be, and have some thoughts on what can be done, right? So that much, I think, by reading, if people do, then you are the originator of the idea, right? Then the partnership with the technical folks of AI can start to say, how do we build this together, right? So if you're not a technical builder of AI, you need to have good ideas and be able to explore those new ideas. Okay?
And I think the subtext of what you're saying is if you are known to be a deep expert in your function,
Yeah.
The technical aspect of AI really doesn't matter as long as you're an expert in whatever you do, because then your ideas will automatically flow about where is the best use of AI and where will it augment stuff for us. So I think that's really cool. I think the next question is up in terms of what kind of roles can we expect in AI?
Yeah, so if you look at the mix of teams that we had that are end-to-end building and deploying AI for clients, we obviously have the technical deep experts within algorithms, within knowledge representation, within machine learning, machine vision. So those tend to be the more technical deep expertise roles. There are roles within their factories if one has the right skills. As I said, the big chunk is also the understanding of the domain and the process, right? Because you're trying to make it work for a particular client. So how do you really architect what the AI should do, what the analytics should do for that client, right? How do you really bring in the domain? That is the second type of role. And the third one, which we certainly can't neglect, is the people who get it deployed and successful to the clients. There is a certain technology mix there. There's a lot of it is around knowing the client and making it work within their process. Some of it is around process redesign, which is once you've introduced the engine, how do you redesign the process around it? So these are the different kind of roles which are there in what we do.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. And then how do you identify
changing trends in technology? Keep talking to clients. It's very, very simple, right? If you have access to clients who are telling you what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, walk around. In this part of the world, we are lucky to be in delivery centers where you can walk around, you can talk to people and say, what are some of the challenges you're facing in this thing? So it's not just about technology, right? If you want to know the latest, talk to clients, and then comes, as I said, the outcome that you're trying to hit, and then the technologies.
So next question is, native development projects are in the decline, and are cross-platform web-based mobile technologies the future?
Right. So this is, I mean, I don't want to answer like this in a great amount of technical detail, but this is absolutely the trend that even we are seeing, right? Everything that we're doing has a one-to-many application with respect to products. We need to be able to deploy any algorithm, any AI in multiple platforms. So it isn't really about coding it, coding it into a specific platform comes last. It's about getting the IP and the outcome and the problem, really well. And then depending on who's using it, you may need to deploy it on a mobile platform also, right?
Okay. So Bhavana, I'm going to do a rapid fire with you.
Wow,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Do I get a hamper?
Yeah, with Louis Vuitton in it. Okay, so let's start. There was a theme of questions which spoke about especially people in early careers, web developers, coders, digital marketers. How can they make a transition into AI?
Okay, that's a good and interesting question. I'm sure a lot of people would be thinking about that. See, the thing is, in such an evolving space, it's not like a lot of people have ready skills, right? So if you can train yourself, right, and if you can participate maybe in hackathons, get the attention of some people who are leaders in that space, that is one way to go. The other thing that, as I mentioned, if you want a job in that space, none of this comes without risk. So maybe if you're not able to make a break into a bigger company, think about joining a startup who is hungry for passion.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a great answer, because I think you need to find the environment that will nurture you.
Yeah.
When you think about, there was a question on choosing a technical career versus a managerial career, and which do you recommend?
Right.
Is there any?
Play to your strengths. Certainly play to your passion, right? So if you are the type who likes coding, then go for that, stay in that zone. If you're the type who likes to be on the side of making it work with clients, more on the process side or more on the, then go for that. If you believe you need to lead large teams, fine, go for that, right? So play to your strengths. And I just want to clarify that there is no such thing as a specific job being a back office role, right? So it's not like if you're doing coding, it's not back office. Frankly, in the kind of work we do, which is take AI to clients on the business side, sometimes a coder is back office. Sometimes it's you know, the client wants to see what's going on, so the coder is in front. So there's no specific rule to all this. As long as you play to your passion and you are in front of whatever it is that you're doing, and you're not afraid of that, that's what, you know, we should all aim for.
And I think that makes sense, because the choices that you make and how much you're able to be in the forefront of things is actually going to determine how successful you are. And it's really not a back end versus a front end, and which job is cooler or not cooler.
Exactly.
Very nicely said. You know, when you think about being women in the corporate life, many times we're confronted with a situation where we are the only woman in a team, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you've been the only woman in your team, and how have you bonded with male colleagues?
Yeah, so I think in the context of the larger context of teams of women at my level across multiple functions, frankly, I have not ever been the only woman, right? And I think you know, there are plenty of women in the ecosystem. You know, we're lucky enough in Accenture to have that. There are several scenarios, however, within that, where 4 of us are trying to crack something, where I have been the only woman. Now, personally, I bond with all people, right? And but I have heard that women struggle with, how do I bond with somebody whose only interests are in a specific area, and I don't have that interest. I would like to challenge everybody, men and women, to say that it is everybody's job to find a common area of interest. And I cannot believe, as you know, two human beings, that a common area of interest cannot be found, whether it is food or whether it is cricket or whether it is Avengers movie. You know, there has to be between two human beings a common area, and I think it's up to both parties to try and find that area.
Yeah, and I think that's again well said, because it's important we're different, but how do we actually find some common ground, right? So those were really the most prominent questions. And I think the last one that I would ask is one question that came through, where they were talking about returning back from maternity and not being able to find the role that you really want to do, right? And how does one do that? So any reactions, and I could go into it. So.
So I completely acknowledge, right? It's not like in any organization, or even one like ours, everybody lands back into a perfect position, right? The question you need to ask yourself is, do you have enough energy to navigate till you get to that right position, right? And once you agree that, yeah, I have to do that, I have to find the right place for myself, I think there are plenty of resources, and you were, you know, kind of to help you with that, and you were kind of talking about some of them earlier, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right, it's not a perfect world. It's not going to work perfectly for everybody. But as you come back, I think if we are planning ahead of the curve to make sure that we know the resources that we're going to leverage, and we have many at our disposal, right? So we have maternity coaches who would get assigned to you if you're going on mat leave, and that person can help you navigate back. You have your own supervisor who you need to stay in touch with. I mean, nobody's asking you to, but I think it's good for you to stay in touch with. And your career counselor, the person who's going to help. And unfortunate reality is many of us don't tap into these resources as much as we should. And by the time we go to these resources, much water has flown under the bridge. I think the best way to make sure that you're coming back to the right role post-maternity is to plan for it even before you go on your maternity, right?
And don't be passive about it.
And the organization is now structured to make that happen. So I think it's really up to us and to how we leverage some of that. So, okay. So my last question to you.
Sure.
You can treat it as a fun question or a very deep question. Are robos going to take over this world?
How do you know I'm not a robo right now?
Oh my God.
Bhavana is actually at home. This is
her.
Yeah, this is her robo.
Her avatar.
Yes.
No.
Okay, how do I know you're not a robo?
On that note, I think it's been really fun speaking to you,
here,
and I really hope that all of you also enjoyed this. Please send in your questions, and I hope that we will be able to answer them even post the event. Do download the Vaahini app and get on board with connecting on the digital platform with us. And thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Bhavana.
Thanks, Anya.